We are live. Hi, my name is Dr. Ben Glass. It's my honor to bring to you this pre-Chiro podcast where I'm interviewing different chiropractors to provide insights to prospective students, anyone who's out there thinking of taking this path in their life to become a chiropractor and wants more information and can't really find any sort of independent resources that are trying to provide insider's perspective, somebody who's been through that process. So today I have Dr. Julia. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. Can you just introduce yourself and just share a little bit about where you're at today in life and also a little bit about your background?
Okay. So my name is Julia Pinkerton. I currently practice in Austin, Texas. I am in part-time practice with another female chiropractor. We both have small children, and so we have decided to go into practice together. And we kind of split up our schedule, and so we're working that with our children, which has been working great. And I think it's a path that lots of female chiropractors should look into and think about because it works really well to have somebody else that's a female with a child that understands what you're going to be going through. I've been in practice now for, God, when did we graduate?
Like 7 years.
Yeah.
Something like 7 years ago.
7, 8 years ago.
8 years.
I have not been in practice full time. I practiced for 4 years, took 2 years off, traveled to Nicaragua, lived there for a year, and then traveled the US another year with my child and my husband. And then I've been back in practice for 6 months now.
Wow. Sweet. Yeah. What a ride. Can you rewind back to before I met you? So talk a little bit about like that whole process. I believe your mom's from Brazil originally and how you ended up going to chiropractic school down there and then also going, because it was so much fun. You decided to go again and just talk a little bit about that transition of choosing to become a chiropractor, going through the education down there and what it was like to come up to the US. And
okay, so my mom was getting chiropractic care while she was pregnant with me, so I have been under chiropractic care pretty much my whole life, not consistently growing up, kind of more of like crisis management, falls, difficult birth, I got adjusted type of thing. But it was my model all growing up. I was under care of a naturopath and a chiropractor. Those were my primary cares. And then when I graduated high school, my family moved to Brazil, where my mom is from. And so I was there for a year to just like hang out and party and learn Portuguese and hang out with my family. And we found out that the first chiropractic school was opening up an hour away from where we were living. And we were like, well, geez, it's been 8 months since we've been adjusted. Like, let's go, right? Mm-hmm. And so we get there and they start to talk in my ear about like, hey, like, maybe chiropractic school would be a good option for you. And it was so great. Like it had never even crossed my mind, but I'm like, yeah, like maybe that would be a good option for me. Like I loved science and I hated blood. And so like that kind of fell in. I liked working with my hands. It kind of fell into ticked all my boxes. Mm-hmm. And so I started chiropractic school in Brazil, and it is a 5-year bachelor degree plus program, which it is in a lot of foreign countries. They don't have you don't do undergrad and then go to chiropractic school. It's a one altogether program. And so after, I think a year before I graduated, I talked to the head of our program. I'm like, hey, so when I get back to the States after I graduate, like, so I'll be able to get licensed and take tests. Like it was the guy from the Foundation of Chiropractic Licensing Board, I think was down there or something, giving us a trial test. And I was like, so yeah, I'll be able to go up and do this when I get there, right? And he's like, nah. I'm like, wait, what? What do you mean I can't take this test? Sorry, let me just put my phone on mute and get licensed. They're like, you have to go to a licensed, accredited chiropractic school to be able to take the chiropractic licensing board tests. And I was like, oh, this isn't a licensed accredited school? And no.
And this brings up, actually, really quick, this brings up a specific issue with chiropractic education worldwide, still to this day, is the lack of portability and being able to change countries and basically have none of your credits count when you transfer.
Yeah, luckily so coming from the US to another country isn't that hard because our standards are so much higher than most of the other countries. Like in Canada, you have to take boards. In the UK, you have to take boards. I think in Australia, you have to take boards, and everywhere else is kind of like free game. Like you just do whatever. Like there's no licensure. It's just like open season. Like PTs can be chiropractors when they do weekend seminars, massage therapy, whoever can be a chiropractor.
Or call themselves chiropractors, even though they're not really chiropractors.
Yeah. So it's kind of most countries are kind of the Wild West of chiropractic, which is kind of fun. If you go, like, you're just like, oh, I put up my shingle and I'm good. Like, shop's open.
Yeah.
Doesn't really work the other way around for people to come to the US. I think New Zealand finally has got it figured out, and you can bring a license from New Zealand here. Maybe a few other countries are getting better, but most of it's just not feasible. So I was faced with the decision of getting some prerequisites done, because I didn't even have all my prerequisites done to get into chiropractic school, and then do chiropractic school again.
Can you talk a little bit about that transition, the school that you chose in the US? You don't have to name names, but kind of
I'll name names.
Why you chose the school you chose, and then what happened thereafter?
Yeah, so so the school in Brazil is affiliated with Palmer. So I started trying with them, like, hey guys, you can throw me a bone here, help me out somehow. And they just really didn't even like. I think they were going through a big. Guy Riekman was leaving, and like they were going through a big transition, and so they just didn't really give me the time of day. So I reached out to a couple other schools. Life West and Western States were the ones that were the most appealing, because I'm from Oregon. And so in Western States, they offered me a scholarship, and Life West at the time, I can't really remember what they offered me to begin with, but I remember like I think the scholarship and being home in Portland kind of won me over, and I started at Western States with you.
Yes.
We started together, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's where we met each other, and it was really your insight in having been sort of immersed in chiropractic from a standpoint of a student already, so that when we got to this school, you were like, I'm going here, I'm going there, and I just started to follow you. And you took me to the back of a restaurant where we heard an upper cervical doc talk about Blair. I followed you to the Oregon Chiropractic Association to listen to a bunch of speakers that no other students in our class at that time were even thinking about, because they were in their first semester of school and it wasn't on their radar. And then we went together to Parker in Vegas as second quarter students, which once again, we were the only ones, I want to say. Maybe there was one other person that went. So I want to thank you for that, because that really opened my eyes to chiropractic. I had no idea. I chose Western States for the location. I loved Portland. It felt good to be there. But can you speak a little bit about kind of like what the experience was like starting chiropractic school in the States, and just talk a little bit about, I don't know, your mental perspective, your mindset going into the program, the first couple semesters, what happened?
Yeah, so I think I was so plugged into the chiropractic, just the outside world outside of Western States, because I had worked in Portland in Vancouver, Washington, under that chiropractor for the prior 2 years, I think. And so I was really plugged into what was going on around. He was very philosophically based and like did everything. So that's just kind of what I did. I just did everything, and like I sucked it all up. Like I was thirsty for chiropractic, like it's just the greatest profession I can think of. And so like I just really plugged in. And then we got to Western States, and it's a great program, and it's very solid scientifically. I don't even want to say it, like hardcore sciences, like is what we started out there, which was really, I think, a great part to do. If you have to pick anywhere in the program, that was the part to do, because they were really, really solid in that. But
right, we got to dissect our own cadavers, which I believe was a privilege.
Experience. Like I honestly say that was probably the best thing I got out of Western States, was being able to dissect our own cadavers, because I don't think any other school does that. And that was just an incredible experience in itself.
Yeah.
And then I think it was I think they called it Foundations and Principles of Chiropractic class, that one of the teachers finally said, and it was the final straw for me. I think you were already gone at this point because you left before I did. He said that like trying to find subluxations was like chasing unicorns. And I was just like, what? There's 100 very smart, impressionable chiropractic students here that are like on board with this profession, and you just took away like the magic of what it has. And I was pissed. Like, I'm like, I've got to go. Like, this is not where I need to be, even though I was immersed in everything around it, which I thought would really help. And it did help. Like, it got me through that beginning part, which was hard. But that was the final straw for me. I was like, I got to go.
Yeah. So to be clear, you're
and cervicalgia.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to be clear, the experience is like medical school. We're taking 8 or 9 hardcore medically oriented science classes that are basically the hardest classes we've ever taken. And to stay connected to some chiropractic outside of the classroom it gives you this sense of, I guess, hope or purpose.
Yeah, hope.
Purpose.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was the final straw for me. I can't remember what was your final straw. I think you were ready after like Parker. You're like, out.
Yeah, I mean, I went up to like Dan Murphy, and he was like, get down to Life West. And then I went up to James Chestnut. He was also like Life West. And yeah, just had conversations with people that I respected after listening to them. I respected their recommendation, and I just packed up within less than a week's notice, rented a U-Haul, and found a place to stay on Craigslist, and boom, it was wild to me that my credits didn't really transfer though. I was only 2 semesters that I was at Western States, but I only had like a half a semester of credits transfer, or
That's
maybe
wild.
or maybe one whole semester. So it set me back. It was easily $20,000 or $15,000 lost.
Yeah.
And it only took me 6 months to figure out that I needed to be at a different school. So can you talk about your transition, transferring schools?
Yeah. So I had looked at Life West before going to Western State, so it was definitely on my radar. And then I think I finally got in touch with Jerry Klum, and he was like, just come down. Like, we're going to help transfer some of your credits from Brazil. Like, it cut down my time. Like, it didn't cut down the length of time I was at Life West, but it cut down my actual during semester credit time. So I had less classes, which was a really great thing. So I got to really explore all the other fun stuff that the Bay Area and all the chiropractors in the Bay Area and all the seminars had to offer.
Yeah.
So that was really incredible. And so he was just like, just come down, and at that point I was like ready. I was like, I've got to get out of here. Like, I can't do this. This is going to suck the life out of me. It's going to suck the love out of me for the profession if I stay here for another 2.5 years. Because I stayed for 3 quarters or semester, quarters, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I was ready to peace out as well. And then got down to Life West, and it was, it was everything I wanted to be. I mean, it was really easy too, coming from Western States, which was nice. It was kind of like a break, and I got a break in the semester credits. So it felt easy. I mean, the paycheck afterwards now is hitting me in the reality of the decisions that I made. But
what do you mean by that? What do you
mean
by
our student loans.
Okay. Yeah, can you talk a little bit about how that sort of fits into your mental perception of today, being a practicing chiropractor with all these student loans?
Yeah. So since I'm only working part-time, I still pay 0, but you watch that number creep up every single year, right? So it's definitely like it's a decision you need to take seriously. I'm banking on the fact that hopefully we get these loans forgiven in 20 years. But even it's crazy so my husband ran the numbers, and like, even if they get forgiven and you pay tax on the percentage, like, I would still owe then what I owe right now. So it's either you can pay everything right now, or in 20 years. But he's like, but think of the money that we could invest right now in other things like properties. By the time we reach 20 years, that hopefully will have grown exponentially. And so the hit in 20 years from now, or now at 15 years from now, won't be as great.
Right.
So that's kind of what we have factored in.
The perspective I'm taking is like we started a nonprofit that we work for ourselves.
Oh, nice.
Providing like lower cost chiropractic to specific populations. And theoretically, after 10 years, you're forgiven and you don't have to pay taxes.
Nice. That's a little deal.
Yeah.
Good job.
I'll let you know if it works.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Yeah. Maybe after you're done with that in 5 more years?
Yeah, 5 more years.
Yeah,
it would be wild though, because like you said, you and I have been out for 7 or 8 years. If we knew that we wanted to be forgiven immediately, we would start our nonprofit. Like right out of school, we would have a nonprofit.
Right.
But anyway.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about your student experience, what you gravitated towards, what you were particularly interested in studying while you were in school?
I was all over the place. I did, God, what I did a little bit of AK. I did some BGI. I did a lot of practice management seminars. I followed Brad Galacki around and worked for him for a while. I went to Cal Jam. I hung out with Billy D. Like, I was all over the place. God, what didn't I do?
What was it that gave you this openness that you felt like it was a good idea to keep exploring these different paths and be all over the place? Why would a student benefit from or how did it benefit you?
I can't remember if somebody told me that or if that's just always how I've kind of operated, is like try a little bit of everything and you'll figure out what you like in the meantime.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I really ended up gravitating towards was the ICPA and pediatrics and prenatal. And I did a doula course while I was in school as well. One of a guy, Michael, I can't remember his name. His wife is a doula that taught in the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. And she taught an amazing doula class. And that's what I ended up finally gravitating towards. But I always told everybody that would listen, like, try everything. Like, how are you going to really know? I mean, people come in like kind of pigeonholed into the one thing that helps them, right? Like activator helped me the most. And so that's what I'm going to do. And just ultimately, I feel like you can't really figure that out until you try a little bit of everything, right? In the meantime. And so like, that's what I always counseled, everything. And like, you have it all right there on your campus in school. Like, it's all right there for you. So try everything you can to see what you really gravitate towards and what really feels the best to you. Because not necessarily, like, I definitely think you should think about the thing that helped you, because I do think that there's something there, like even cellularly, like that's helped you, and that you will be able to convey the message to people maybe greater. But man, all chiropractic works.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't, like I've done so many and received so many, and it all works.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's all tapping into the nervous system. It just depends on like who you're trying to help, who is your target population, what do they need, and how can you communicate to them the most effectively. I think that's what helps people.
As a chiropractic student, why did you start taking a doula course? How did that play into the identity that you were developing and forming within yourself as being a chiropractor who takes care of pregnant women and helps them with that transition of giving birth?
So I'm sure it was through the ICPA. I think I started out with Webster's with Jeannie Ohm, and she just talks about birth and the experience and the mindset. And I can't remember if it was somebody in school that pointed me in that direction, or if it was while I was going through the ICPA courses that came up, that just being a birth provider, like, this is a good education to have. I didn't ever practice as a doula, but like, I just wanted the education of like what is out there in the birth world, and what I needed to be prepared for, and how I could help these women the most, because I think it's, for me, like, kids and pregnant women are just the most fun population. I think it's partly because my mom was pregnant while she was getting care, right? And then I got it as a child. So I think I identified with that the greatest. And so it just fit beautifully into it. And since, like I said, the lady was married to a chiropractor, so she was talking chiropractic philosophy throughout her doula course, which was awesome. So it was great to see her point all these women in this doula course also to chiropractic.
Sweet. If you could speak specifically to the doulas out there, why would a doula be attracted, or why could a doula think that chiropractic was the next step for them?
So, I mean, they're witnessing the miracle of birth and what happens. And like, I think they're there throughout so doula has a very unique perspective where they see the medical route, they can see the birth center route, and they can see that home route, right? They can see the full gamut. And so I think every doula that I've talked to is like home birth, like that's where I want to be. Like it's the opposite of what happens in the hospital. And I think that kind of plays into our philosophy. And then seeing like what our body goes through and how our nervous system adapts for that process. Like, how do you effectively make that, how do you achieve a greater potential for the body to go through that process safely and smoothly? I'm sure like most doulas start to refer to chiropractors because they see what happens when women are getting chiropractic care. Like their pelvis is open better, like their mind-body communication is working better, like the whole cascade is quicker, and just it runs a lot smoother when people are under chiropractic care most of the time, right? It's not always 100% of the time. There's other factors, but like most of the time it just makes everything better. So I think they get to see that firsthand, and I'm sure they must be intrigued at some point, like what is this, what are they doing? How would I help a woman to a greater effect?
Sweet. So can you speak a little bit about the transition that you had from chiropractic student to practicing chiropractor? Kind of how did you navigate that terrain? Because everybody takes a different direction. Some people start their own practice. Some people take an associateship. Did you feel like you had the skills to start your own practice? And did you take an associateship, or did you start your own practice? How did you go about it?
Yeah, so I took an associateship. I still don't think I would want to start my own practice just because I just love being a chiropractor. And so the business part doesn't really attract me a lot. I think eventually I'll try it just because I want to be able to say, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I can do that. But I went straight to an associateship. I worked with a chiropractor, and I interviewed a lot of chiropractors to work with. So I found one that he had been in practice for 25 years. He was third generation upper cervical, had a family practice, cash based. So it was all the things that I kind of wanted. And then added in upper cervical, which I'd always been interested in. Yeah, like at Western States, we were already kind of like looking into the upper cervical world with Blair and Dick Holtz with Nuka. I don't remember if you went to that one with me. Yeah.
I was there.
So I was really intrigued by it.
It was fascinating.
Toggle before, but never real upper cervical where you're doing x-rays before and after. And so I was really intrigued by that. And so he ticked all my boxes, and it's funny, I think he interviewed me for half an hour and I interviewed him for an hour and a half. Like I grilled him. So I wanted to it's a big decision. I hear about chiropractors, we've been out there talking to people. Chiropractors have really terrible experiences as associates sometimes. So I wanted to make sure my experience was going to be the best possible. And so I really did my due diligence beforehand and found somebody that I could really respect and look up to, and I knew was going to take care of me and not, feed me as the wild beasts out there.
Yeah. So you're saying that you actually took the time to put together a list of questions, and you entered into this sort of interviewing him just as much as he was interviewing you.
Yep.
Okay.
Which I think is really important. Like, people have to understand, like, they're not only the ones that are being interviewed. Like, this has to be a good fit for you as well. So make sure you ask the questions that need to be asked and everything is clear beforehand, because the more clarification you can get beforehand, the less troubles there'll be in the future in the back end.
Definitely. So can we apply that to the prospective chiropractic student? What types of questions should they be asking of themselves? Or should they be asking the schools that they're visiting? Um, or asking the chiropractors that they're shadowing or getting some, observation time with?
Yeah, I think asking like if they like a chiropractor, maybe asking like what school he recommends, what school did they go to, what was their experience going to the schools. I think it's really important, not just the classes and the curriculum, but making sure there's solid technique, because I don't think any of us come out solid enough in the technique, and making sure there's extracurriculars as well, like clubs and things where you can put in extra time, because just what we get inside school is not really enough to feel fully confident in your abilities. I've seen most of the time. Some people just smoke it and like are amazing, right? Usually people that have some sort of I feel like martial arts did really well with adjusting. Like they just had a better comprehension of their biomechanics. But most people don't come out really comfortable adjusting in their skills as a chiropractor.
Right.
So making sure there's other things that you can do to make that you can put in your hours and really get a good feel for the profession and the technique before you go out and start to practice.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, just thank you for sharing. I think that this has been really valuable for people that are considering it. It's a big decision. It's an expensive investment. It's a big investment. I would argue that you need to be thinking this is going to be the path that you decide to take for the next 10 to 20 years, if not for a lifetime. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So any last recommendations? Any final message to the students that, or not students, people that are transitioning careers? They might be college athletes. They might be leaving the financial world and wanting to get into healthcare. Why chiropractic instead of physical therapy, or why chiropractic instead of medicine?
So, I mean, for me, like the option between medicine is like not even if you're I don't know, like it's just such an opposite way of thinking. So I'd say for me, it's the philosophy that really makes the difference. Is maybe studying some of the philosophy of chiropractic and seeing if that jives with you. I feel like the people that are really on fire as chiropractors and do really well are people that love the philosophy, and like that's what they live and breathe, and that's how they see the world, is through that lens. That your nervous system controls everything, and that you live your life from above down, inside out, like, and how can we increase our expression and our potential, and through the nervous system is the key. And I think that makes the biggest difference for people. So like I think it's, what is the name, the chiropractic philosophy, was that the name of the book? It was a really good intro to me, a really easy read. Like I think the green books were always kind of scary. It's a really hard thing to get into at first. And so that was like an easy read on like, oh, this is what this is about, right? It's not about pain. It's not about fixing somebody. It's about increasing their potential and their ability to adapt to their environments and be able to live their life to a greater degree. And like, who doesn't want to hear that and vibe with that? I don't know.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm 8 years in to practice, or 7 years into practice, and I'm loving it. It's been really a great path for me. I used to be a college athlete. I was studying to be a personal trainer and studying nutrition, and I was all about like, how do we promote health? And yet I was still wanting to go become like a physician's assistant or optometrist, because that was like the shiny object as a college student. It just seemed like that was the best path if you wanted to make a difference in the world. But little did I realize that's like medicine. That's like really working with sickness and disease in a hospital setting or in a very sterile environment, which is the exact opposite of what I was really most passionate or most interested in. So thank you. Appreciate you.
Yeah, it was fun hanging out.
Absolutely. If you know any students that you think can benefit from hearing this message, please share it with them. And I think that from a standpoint of the profession and the profession's biggest subluxation, so to speak, or biggest disconnect, it's between the schools and the prospective students. There's no real like orientation process. And so students might go to any school and might experience something completely different and might never even hear about the philosophy. And you're talking about the most successful chiropractors are on fire because of the perspective that they have as being chiropractors. Is like unique and exciting to them. So my thought is that pre-chiro could really be that thing that gives people a shared experience. Everybody's studying the philosophy together. Everybody's observing the different types of techniques together. And then regardless of what school they go to, they at least have a mutual respect, because I felt like there was some disrespect coming after I transferred. People were looking at me crazy from the school that I transferred from. And you know, they didn't even know anything about the students down at the other school. They had just heard about like the other type of chiropractic, and it's kind of limiting our potential. So
absolutely. And yeah, it makes me sad for, our classmates. Some of them I've seen have really floundered because they didn't find this amazing thing that we knew about, and some of them have. I've seen the ones that have found it. And I'm like, well, thank goodness, like somebody found the way even after Western states, but it's because they were connected with docs that had it.
Yeah. So it really, it's tough to stay excited and be on purpose for chiropractic if you go to a school that is trying to eliminate it, so to speak, or minimize it. But it's still possible to become a great chiropractor even if you go to one of those schools, because those are brilliant people that all they need is to be exposed. There's just a lack of exposure. So
right, exactly.
Anyway, where do you see the profession going in the next 5 or 10 years?
Man, I am shocked that this coronavirus has increased people's practices, which I had no idea that was going to happen. Like, well, and I should say that like other people have closed, but the people that are still doing it are kicking butt. Like, I don't know, like if people want to be healthier and they finally ever, because they're working at home and so their backs are messed up, or if like they have extra funds now because they are staying at home more. But all of a sudden I see people like their practices are like going up pretty steadily. So I'm pretty excited that something big will come of this. And we'll see what happens after a vaccine hits the market. Like people are going to be needing it more than ever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll see. I just think that the profession, well, the internet's making these resources that we were exposed to more available to people than ever before. So there's really no excuse for the young student, the young chiropractic student, to say, I didn't know, or I had no idea. I mean, they literally have to be ignoring it. Because if you search hashtag chiropractor or hashtag chiropractic student, all of a sudden you start to get exposure to things like this discussion, and
yeah, it's awesome. I love it.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it. Right on.